Marquise Kaminsky, fucking good in the ball!
All the way to the basket. Foul. Lays it in for two.
Happy Monday, high school hoops fans. Welcome into the Upstate Hoops podcast here on FingerLakes1.com. Coming to you live from the North Park building in Seneca Falls, New York, the FingerLakes1.com studios. I am Paul Russo, joined as always by Kyle Evans, Nate Sharman, Jim Senecropi on the... Where is he? Virginia, right? He's down south, lucky him. So, escaping potential winner later this week. But we miss him. We will do our best to live up to fill one extra seat. But, boys, sectional time. Can you believe it already?
One of the best times of the year.
The most wonderful time of the year.
A lot of good games coming up probably more towards the end of this week, you would say.
Yeah, for sure. And we'll get all into that because the main portion of the show is going to be look at the brackets. I mean, like you said, Kyle, what could be better?
Yeah.
I mean,
doesn't matter what you did all year. It matters what you do now, right?
February fever, I think is what I came up with last week. So,
all right, how many cliches can we get out here?
I don't know. I'm going to leave that one to pasture for the time being because we do have to thank DeSanto Propane, Generations Bank, and Little John and Barbie Orthodontics for their continued support all year. You'll hear more on each of them in due time. So let's jump into our DeSanto Propane week recap. DeSanto Propane, 4 generations strong, is a trustworthy family-owned business with unmatched customer service. Go online at DeSantoPropane.com for more information or call toll-free at 1-800-752-4574 today. Since 1937, the difference has been DeSanto Propane. So, obviously last week, bit of a lighter week, not much to really go over, but some things to kind of point out before we get going into the podcast for today. Really was Valentine's Day last Tuesday on the Finger Lakes East boys side of things that saw Wayne and Newark go at it, Marcus Whitman and Paul Mack go at it. All four, in all honesty, what would have been a solo Finger Lakes East title, and the Newark Reds were able to accomplish that by defeating Wayne. At the same time, Nate, you were over in Paul Mack for the Whitman-Paul Mack game that Paul Mack won. Obviously, no avail there for them because of the Newark victory. But you saw a pretty good game there in Paul Mack, all things considered. And I believe that was your first time seeing the Red Raiders in person, right?
Yes, it was. They looked really good. Ian Goodness, early in that game, I think he had 23 in the first half. He was just going to the basket and putting the ball in his hands early in that game. And we were able to talk to him after the game in the post-game interview. And he just knew it was one of those days where everything's going in for him, so give me the ball and let me go to work, kind of a statement from Ian Goodness. So a really good Paul Mack win. I thought Marcus Whitman played really well, especially coming out of the second half.
Mm-hmm.
You know, Paul Mack, had a pretty good lead, pretty sizable double-digit lead in going into that second half. And as Coach Greg O'Connor does, he has his teams ready to play that second half, and they caught that lead early. Gorton had a couple nice shots, especially some threes too, and was able to kind of build into that lead a little bit, but then Paul Mack kind of came away with it towards the end of that third quarter and then was able to come out with a victory.
Yeah, I mean, that women team's interesting. We've now seen them collectively a couple of different times.
They're so well coached, and they're, I think, like Blue Eye, I think they're going to really be a good team. I mean, he's only a freshman, and they got some other kids that are good too. Prendergast kid is really good. Yeah. So, and they're really young too, so I think they're going to be a force to be reckoned with in the next few years. Yeah,
circle back to Wayne Newark, that game, 60-53 win there. For the Reds, do want to give a quick shout. Kellen Foster had 25 and 6 threes in that game.
No Bill Thompson in that game, correct?
Yeah, he was out. Not on the sideline for that game, but Kellen Foster. Shout out to him. I mean, he's one of the role guys for the New York Reds that we don't really talk about when we talk about, like, say, a Braden Steve or like a Rayshon Howard type player. But really, when they needed him, he came up in that game. Obviously, they were up. They got up above double digits during the third quarter. I noticed like the stream kind of went out for a moment there, and they were up at halftime. Wayne came back a little bit, but Kellen Foster, 6 threes, 25 total points. That's a big game for him.
Yeah, when they get balanced scoring like that, they're pretty tough to beat. Newark pretty much, to me, controlled this game for the most part. Like you said, they did have a double-digit lead at one point, but credit to Wayne. More times than not, every time they got down by double digits, they'd fight right back, make it a 6-7 point game, and fortunately they couldn't catch up at the end, and Newark pulled away.
Yeah, Cam Blankenberg had 19 for the Eagles, so that was kind of it on the boys' side of things. Really overall, do want to mention Lions in Geneva Thursday night. Lions winning that game 83-70. High scoring affair player-wise. J.C. Walker had 43 for Lions. Anthony Torres had 45 for Geneva. Just really kind of like one of those kind of have to double take a little bit.
Walker had a cool
score.
dunk and the foul, right? That's the game we're talking about, right?
No, that was
that was the other game. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
that was a Friday night game.
Right.
Yeah, and there was a dunk in that game. Brian Whitley threw it down.
That's what I'm thinking of.
two-hand.
Okay,
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
But
This game was
Brian.
tied after actually 3 quarters.
I mean, it was one, and like I said, it was one of those games box score wise. You have to kind of a double take look at it in a way.
It was actually a lot of fun. Probably one of the. I know that it ended up being a 13-point win, but through 3 quarters, I thought the atmosphere in the gym was great. I thought the game was great. You know, you had 2 guys basically trading baskets back and forth throughout the entire night. Just Lions was obviously the better team, and they pulled away.
Yeah. Let's shift gears to the girls' side of things because there was also a championship or league title or two to figure out there. The following night in the Finger Lakes East on Wednesday the 15th, Waterloo and Palmac entered tied, and Waterloo came out with the title. Solo there. Start with that game. They came away with a win over Geneva. Addison Breed led the way with 24, but in that game, do have to congratulate Morgan Caraballo, 1,000 career points for Morgan. So another 1,000-point score checked off here in the Wayne Finger Lakes.
Doesn't it feel like we've seen a lot of 1,000-point
Yeah.
scores this year? Is that, to me, it doesn't seem normal. We've had so many.
I think it's a credit to the talent in the area and for how long they've been playing, obviously, at that point. So congratulations, Morgan. Congratulations to everybody who has gotten to that level this year.
Yeah, to me, it's a really good credit to these programs and organizations that are able to really grow kids from a young age and get them up into the varsity program and ready to go too, so they're able to really start scoring early in their high school careers. And so, just a really much credit to them, being able to build these programs and these players.
And then take the trip north into Wayne County. Palmac hosted Mid-Lakes, and Mid-Lakes came away victorious over the Red Raiders, 48-37.
Yeah,
and that was the difference maker.
I was
give
watching
Waterloo.
this game. Palmac played actually really bad. A lot of turnovers. Basically, that's really what hurt them. They turned the ball over a lot. I don't know the exact number, but Mid-Lakes definitely deserved the win after the amount of times they turned the ball over.
I do want to make note, the other league title that was up for grabs last week was the Finger Lakes West girls. Ended up being a tie because of Bloomfield come away victorious over Red Jackets. So Bloomfield and Dundee Bradford come away with a shared title in the Finger Lakes West.
I don't think I saw that coming.
Maybe not. Yeah, probably not. I mean, both teams are really good, and obviously, it's weird. I mean, I've always kind of found, I don't know. I've found tied league titles are tough sometimes. I mean, I think the competitor in me really is like, there's got to be some form of tiebreak somewhere down the line you could find, but
Hey, I agree with you.
yeah, in the grand scheme of it, it's probably not worth going to the coin toss potentially. So, yeah, I mean it was like we said, it was a lighter week. There were some things to kind of tidy up along the way, but fantastic final 3-4 days of regular season basketball we had last week. So with that in mind, we'll transition over to our final power rankings on the year. Those are brought to you by Generations Bank. Generations Bank has been serving the financial needs of the Finger Lakes region since 1870. Generations combines the best of modern banking with dedication to our local communities. Whether you're looking for a checking account, CDs, a home improvement loan, you name it, they have what you need. They're committed to serving and giving back to our communities. You can visit them at mygenbank.com. Generations Bank, member FDIC, and equal housing lender. I can't remember which one we did first last week. Did we boys or girls first last week?
I believe we did.
I think we did boys last week, right?
All right, so girls
Let's do
first
girls.
it is then. Final power rankings of the year, everybody. And in a wire-to-wire victory in that sense, the Waterloo Tigers on top, followed by the Palmac Red Raiders still at 2, the Gananda Blue Panthers at 3, Lions at 4, and Mid-Lakes with the victory coming up to 5th. So we'll start with the top 5 and then focus on the bottom part there. The key thing that I saw really on the girls' side this week, no ties. Everybody kind of had themselves figured out, I thought. I will say this, and I guess maybe we can kind of combine up the rest of it a little bit here. You see Dundee Bradford at 6, ER at 7, Bloomfield at 8, Minders at 9, and then Clydesvan at 10. Dundee, Bradford, tough seeing them technically slide. They were idle last week. I know we all have varying opinions on that, but for me, it's tough to see them slide after they were idle last week. I don't think it's quite fair to them, but Midlake certainly beating Paul Mac had a statement win. I mean, they kind of been lingering in that bottom half-ish area for the better part of the second half of the year and get back up to 5th, finish out the year in the top 5.
Yeah, and Midlake's, if you look at their league record was actually good. Their overall record, I think it was 12-8. It doesn't look too great, but it was still good. And as for Dundee Bradford, it's tough in that situation because, like you said, they didn't play. And that's, when we do these power rankings, sometimes teams are off for a while or they play teams that, in other leagues. So it's tough to kind of just rank teams like that.
Yeah.
It's good to see Gananda continue to move up. I think that's their highest ranking in our rankings this season.
Yeah.
Just continue to play great basketball, and Minders too. I think 8 is the highest we've had them too. If not, they might have been at 8 already.
Minders at 9.
Or Minders at 9. Excuse me.
Nice.
But just good to see teams, playing some of these teams playing their best basketball at the right time.
And I feel like Clyde has moved the most. Am I right about that?
Probably.
Weren't they in like the top 5 at one point?
At least in terms of probably going both up and
Probably.
down, yeah. I mean, it's the girls' one I find more interesting than the boys. It's not a knock on the boys. It's that boys is, you'll see, it's remained pretty much the same 10-ish all year.
Midlakes has moved a little bit too. I feel like we had them up pretty high early, but they've played
Yeah.
such a challenging out of, like you said, Paul, Kyle,
Yeah.
out of league schedule has been really challenging.
Yeah, the girls' ones I find more interesting only because, we have Waterloo. Obviously, they went outright the league for FL East. They're up there. Then, I mean, the other league champion and co-champions are 6, 7, 8. So it's interesting. I'm not saying one team's better than the other in that sense. They're all really good teams at worst in that sense. But it's interesting. It's why I enjoy kind of we do the voting system on it and stuff like that, and having everybody's different opinions on it. It's what makes it cool to kind of discuss and have these types of conversations.
Agreed.
So without further ado then, let's flip over to the boys' side and their final power rankings of the year. Which are the girls. The Lions on the boys' side go wire to wire at number 1. Not very surprising, I'd say there. Newark coming in at 2, Paul Mac 3, Wayne 4, and then Geneva 5, your final top 5 of the year. Like I mentioned, the boys kind of overall kind of stayed stagnant's probably not the right term, it's just that boys' side, it kind of seemed like you had what you had, and that was about it for the most part, it seemed. South Seneca at 6, Barlow at 7, East Rochester 8, Red Creek and Red Jacket rounding out the top 10 there. Like I said, the boys ended up being very similar 10 all year and similar positions all year even. I wouldn't say it made things any less interesting, but you saw position change throughout the year. And to me, the talking point really of the week was the fact Newark and Wayne effectively switched positions in the final ranking. In fact, that was really the only true position shift, I believe.
Yeah, I feel like for me all year, the boys' side was kind of the easiest to rank. Like you said, there were still a lot of really good and competitive teams. It just, you kind of knew what you had. With the girls, it was more of a mix-up, with the non-league games like for Mid-Lakes and, just different scenarios for the girls. So I think the boys were the easiest to rank.
Yeah, I don't know maybe if easier is the right term, but I know what you mean. Kind of
Like you kind of just knew what you had in the top 5.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, agreed, definitely. Good to see South Seneca playing really good ball, especially the second half of the season, and able to kind of climb. Yeah, all year too, but it seemed like they really have come on and hit their stride in the second half.
Yeah, I mean, I'd say it's a whole year deal for them. I mean, I believe it's only 2 total losses on the year. Like, that's a whole year effect, I'd say, on that front. But fun time. That's it for the power rankings on the year. So, how about another thing wrapping up quicker than we thought?
Yeah, that flew by.
Yeah. All right. So without further ado, we'll jump into our sectional brackets. So those are brought to you by Dr. Littlejohn and Dr. Barbie and their outstanding orthodontic team. They share a common goal to ensure the overall wellness of each of their patients through their exceptional orthodontic care. Dr. Rod Littlejohn and Dr. Liz Barbie are proud to support our area high school athletes. You can check them out, Dr. Rod and Dr. Liz, both online at littlejohnortho.com. So, Kyle, credit to you over the weekend, handling all the sectional bracketing and getting those built out and everything like that. So without further ado, we'll start with the boys' side since we did the girls' power rankings first. We'll start with the boys' sectional brackets here. And for everybody at home, we're going to not totally like randomize it in true sense, but we'll spin the wheel and see which bracket we have come up first that we will be previewing. And we have boys C1. How about that? Boys C1 is up first. So, if you take a look here, quarterfinal heavy here with some Wayne Finger Lakes teams. Notably up top at the 8 and 9, we have Bloomfield and Marcus Whitman. East Rochester is hosting Letchworth. That's a 4-13 matchup. Head on down to Sodus, and you see them at the 7th seed against Addison. Then Castillo Greenwood hosting the 11th seed Williamson. The first overall seed in that is Rochester Academy. Avon and Geneseo have the other two byes. So, to me, the big matchup, and this is obviously the two teams in our coverage area that face off against each other in the first round, Bloomfield-Whitman. That's a tough spot for both teams. It's a bit of a sucker play almost having those two teams as an 8-9 matchup. Especially, we see Marcus Whitman play North. They got Bloomfield also had a really good year this year. They were a team in the boys' rankings that did pop up from time to time, receiving votes at least. So, battle between Finger Lakes West and East in the first round there.
Yeah, some of these first-round matchups are definitely going to be interesting, but I don't see either of the Wayne Finger Lakes teams really making a run. I mean, the teams that have the byes are just way better, and I just don't see an upset on this bracket, especially.
I think East Rochester could do something. I thought they played well against that Lions team that we saw once this year. So I wouldn't be surprised if they find themselves either in the semifinal or even taking down a team like Rochester Academy. It'll be tough, but I wouldn't be surprised if we see them in the semifinal.
Yeah, I mean, I'm intrigued by Whitman. Obviously they play up in terms of size against Finger Lakes East teams. It's interesting. I don't know, admittedly, a ton with Rochester Academy, but, I mean, Avon and Geneseo are always two tough teams coming out from Geneseo, so I don't...
Programs.
I kind of see potentially somebody from that bottom end of the bracket, but I'm kind of with you. East Rochester really intrigues me, and Marcus Whitman really does intrigue me as well. So, I get the sense that both of you, though, seem to agree it might be a bit of a chalky bracket, C1.
I would say probably, yeah, out of most of them, yeah.
Okay. Nate, same thing in a way, or?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know a ton about Rochester Academy, unfortunately. But yeah, I don't know. I think East Rochester could be good, and like you said about Marcus Whitman, so I think you could see a higher seed come out of that top end of the bracket there.
Sure. All right, spin the wheel here. Where will we be heading next? Survey says boys D1. I enjoyed the sound effects we have with that. So, a few teams here in the Wayne Finger Lakes to look at. Naples at 9. They have to travel down to Genesee Belfast for their first round game. HAC takes on Keshequa in a 4-5 matchup. And then Batavia Notre Dame hosts 6th seed Honeoye. Unfortunately for these teams, the name of the game with this bracket is unfortunately that top seed Avoca Prattsburg. They are the number 1 team in Class D in the state once again. They got back to that after losing to Lions. So unfortunately, I don't think we will see a Wayne Finger Lakes team come out here. I think we will see probably Avoca Prattsburg, barring some sort of what I would call chaos occurring.
They weren't that impressive to me, though, against Lions. I mean, I know playing a bigger school for their perspective is tough, but it still wasn't. I mean, Avoca Prattsburg didn't really have much in that game.
Yeah, but these teams are, I would say, like a lot more weaker in terms of competitiveness. I don't know. For this bracket, too, I kind of am not very interested in it. In my opinion, I don't see any of these 3 teams, the Wayne Finger Lakes teams, win a game. I don't think they'll win a game.
Yeah, I could see maybe Honeoye kind of making a run potentially at Batavia Notre Dame, only because you just don't know sometimes with the private schools really what can and can't happen. But yeah, another bracket in this case where I really see it being the 1 seed, and that's Avoca Prattsburg kind of taking over that. Spinning the wheel here. Where will we end up? 8 more brackets to visit on the boys' side, and it's A2. That sees Wayne out of the Finger Lakes East. They're down at the 3 seed. They'll be taking on HFL, top seed Monroe. This bracket, A2, is always fascinating to me because obviously you have Wayne in there, but these are typically some of the better schools you'll kind of see in the area, kind of in Class A, in this case A2, kind of end up. I kind of like Wayne's chances here. I think
too.
it's a bit of a favorable bottom side of the bracket for them. I don't know, should they get to the championship game, obviously, because we don't know, obviously, what will happen. I think it's dependent on whether or not Monroe more than likely facing off against one of the Pittsburgh schools, what really happens there. But, I mean, I'm pulling for the Eagles here. I think the Eagles have a legit shot here, potentially.
Yeah, I think sorry, I said Honeyway. I'm looking at Honeyway Falls Lima. I think Wayne beats Honeyway Falls Lima, but I'm not sure they would be East. I looked at East. I believe they're 16-3 on the year. You know, they played in, like you said, a very tough league. A lot of good teams on this bracket. I don't know. I don't see them in the championship game, but I do think they'll win that one game against Honeyway Falls Lima.
Nate, anything?
Yeah, I agree with you, Paul. I think Wayne has a good chance in this bracket. Like you said, sort of a nice little favorable draw there in the bottom. It's going to be interesting though. You know, if they're able to take care of Honeyway Falls Lima, that game against East is gonna have my eyes for sure.
At least in theory against East.
Right. In
So.
theory, yeah. Also,
I'm with
if they take care of business like Wayne, of course.
Right. All right, back to the wheel. It's great for the visual platform listeners of this. There we go. B1, the one that we've all been waiting for.
Ah, yes.
The best one.
Yeah, I mean, I would agree here, and I think it's a bit of a toss-up here. I mean, we got obviously what I would say the most centralized portions of our Wayne Finger Lakes teams.
You got the Wayne Finger Lakes part of the bracket.
Yeah, the Finger Lakes East is all at the bottom here for the most actually all the Finger Lakes East. They're in B1 are at the bottom of the bracket. Mid Lakes in the West, they're up top at the 9 seed, and they take on Livonia in 2 days' time. Geneva taking on Greece Odyssey. Waterloo has Rochester Prep. And then should they win, Geneva would see Newark, and Waterloo would see Palmac, both on Saturday night. So at least in principle, we'll have at least one team coming out of the Finger Lakes East come championship time, and it would be a breakfast at the Big House game.
Yeah.
I guess the question would be, though, take your pick out of the 4. Who do you think it would be?
Ooh.
I think, for myself.
Give me Newark.
So you're going Newark. Okay. I think I might lean Palmac for the defense purposes,
Me too.
That's a good point.
but
Yeah, because the last time they matched up, they
Yeah.
held Newark really low.
I don't hate the Newark pick. I think Newark's at a good spot cylinder-wise here, firing away on all of them. That, I mean, they're riding hot. I think coming off that Wayne game, and you have a little bit of it. The one part I don't like about this, in all honesty, for Newark and Palmac, is the fact that they have to wait, what is it, about 10 days.
Wonder how that Lions Palmac scrimmage went.
Right. Now, I know that they had, at least Palmac had a scrimmage. I don't know about Newark.
Palmac Lions, yeah.
But you at least have that scrimmage there for them. But Geneva's not going to probably be a pushover, and Waterloo's not going to be a pushover. That's an interesting spot there.
Yeah, Waterloo beat Palmac this year.
Yeah, I mean, that's going to be an interesting spot potentially, especially, you know, you get at least the true in-game rest. It's 10 days. That's tough. I'm kind of one of the people that I don't mind if you give me a couple days extra rest, but I'd rather just keep going. You know what I mean?
Me too.
Isn't it a shame we don't get to see a possible Newark Palmac final? That the bias Wayne Finger Lakes fan in me wants to see that, but unfortunately,
Right.
we
Well,
don't
I
see
mean,
it.
that's the way it is that we always hope. I mean,
The
yeah,
possibility
I
of
mean,
it
like I
anyway.
said, it's nothing like against Mid Lakes. Is that, you know, Livonia was a tough play early in the year. They haven't been so much the second half, but yeah, Batavia. We obviously know about Bishop Kearney. We've talked about them a couple different times on this podcast. So I'd expect for sure we get one team from the Wayne Finger Lakes going on to breakfast at the Big House on Saturday the 4th.
But we all agree this is, in our minds, anyway, or in my mind anyway, I guess I won't speak for you guys, the best basketball games will be played in this bracket.
On the boys' side, yeah.
For the
Yep,
boys' side, yes.
I would agree.
More than likely. like I said, the best part about this race is we just don't know the chaos that could potentially come out of these one-game samples. So, all right, back to the wheel. A few more to go here. We have, 6 more, 5 more? I don't even know how many more. Boys D2. Now, this one doesn't have any Wayne Finger Lakes teams. I will show it quick for anybody who really is a look. And a lot less teams here this year. This is normally where we would see Romulus come out of. But I would imagine state rankings, you have Jasper Troopsburg also there, so I'm imagining this one's probably going to be chalky as well.
Yeah, I'm not so sure the number 1 seed in this bracket wins. Just looking at it, I mean, I don't really know everyone's record right now, but I'm just feeling like maybe Mount Morris wins this bracket.
I like it. All right, back to the wheel. 5 more to go. 2 C's, a B, and a couple A's. And we'll head to B2. So B2, not as loaded, but we have one matchup right off the bat against 2 Finger Lakes East opponents in the pre-quarters. North Rose Wolcott is down at the bottom in the 10 seed. They play Attica, but Minders, Penn Yan, 8 and 9, and that game that they actually played last week determined who had home court in this game, and that will be the Blue Devils against the Mustangs. So last week proving big across a couple different platforms here.
Yeah, another bracket I'm not too excited for. I mean, in terms of the local teams, the Minders Penn Yan game is going to be interesting just because of the way the teams played during the season. But North Rose Wolcott I don't think really stands much of a chance, and yeah, just to me not a good bracket.
Yeah, it's a tough draw. Obviously, I think if you're Nate, you mentioned right the biased fan in you. This is where you really would have hoped that Minders and Penn Yan somehow got separated some way.
Right.
But either way, if they were to move up or down or one way or another, they'd be playing another potentially in area opponent. So, this one's interesting. Hornell, Wellsville, Dansville, and Leroy, the 1 through 5s are interesting. I'll go on a limb. I know obviously they aren't an area, but I'll say it will be a battle of the Vills between Wellsville and Dansville, I think, in B2.
That's what I was thinking too. Wellsville always seems to be loaded and ready to go this time of year.
When I was in high school, and it's still the case here, Wellsville is just a tough out. For whatever reason, they're
in a lot of sports, it seems.
Out. Yeah. So, who knows? I don't know what they got in the water down there, but...
or in the well.
Well, I see what you did there. All right, A1 is where we're heading to next. No true Wayne Finger Lakes teams here, but Canandaigua, who is in our coverage area, tough draw for them. They'll be taking on Irondequoit. For me in this bracket, I'm going to assume quickly here it'll probably be Greece Athena. Greece schools, once again, what I was talking about, they're one of the tougher outs usually. So we'll go back to the wheel. 3 more options to go, AA, C2, and C3. The C is waiting in the wings. And do we have our first C? We do. It's C3. Out of the 2. This is where we see another pretty good combination of area teams. Obviously, Lions at the 1. Have to scroll down to South Seneca at the 3 for the next one. And then Red Jacket at 7, Dundee Bradford at 8, and Marion is down at 11. They're on the road against Wheatland Chili. But I would imagine this is probably going to be Lions to lose. This is where I will pull my hat, though, with Nate. I would love nothing more, though, if it would be Lions South Seneca Blue Cross Arena Friday night.
That would be a lot of fun.
Yeah. I would be surprised if Lions does drop, though. I see them winning pretty. I shouldn't say easily, but yeah, I don't know a ton about these other teams, but South Seneca or Byron Burgeon I think would give them a little bit of hardship. But I expect the Lions to come out as champions.
So this is the bracket where I don't, we haven't had this yet. I think we do see 2 teams at least that we cover in Lions out of Wayne County and South Seneca in the West that I think do meet in the championship game. I do lean with you, Nate. I think I would give the edge to Lions. We've seen them a ton. I think we know what they can do. I think it's pretty simple what they can do. So I'm really looking forward. I think C3 is going to be an interesting bracket to keep an eye on. I know we always talk about B1 and stuff like that, but C3, we got our fair share of teams here, and I think it's going to be a really fun watch here the next couple weeks.
I would agree. Do you think Red Jacket's going to win their first game?
Yeah, I think they win their first game for sure. I think the only one, unfortunately, I don't see winning would probably be Marion.
Yeah.
So I would like to see Dundee Bradford advance and get one more game, but that would be the Lions would be their opponent on Friday night for that. So
at the community center.
Right. So. All right, back to the wheel. We have 2 more to go, AA and C2. Where it stops, nobody knows, and it's going to be boys AA. So, again, no Wayne Finger Lakes here, but Victor, who is in our area, they have the top seed. They were running rampant, undefeated going into February. Picked up a couple losses along the way, but I still think that they probably get through that, and they are the nightcap Saturday night rather at Blue Cross Arena. So, intriguing stuff there for the Blue Devils. And then, last but not least, C2 boys. Now, not a ton of teams, obviously. We got 3. Red Creek coming in at the 4. They're the highest seed of Wayne County in that. And their other opponents are 2 other Wayne County teams, Ganonda at the 6 and Clyde Savannah at 11. And they happen to be playing each other tomorrow night. Outside of that, if Ganonda, Clyde Savannah, the winner of that game, they'll face Oakfield, Alabama. If that name sounds familiar. They've met Lions in the sectional title game last year I believe it was actually in C1 if I remember right, and beat Lions. So obviously that Oakfield, Alabama team can hang and play tough, but this is a bracket primarily comprised of, I'd say, the Western New York portion of Section 5, Genesee's, Livingston, I believe. Actually, no, they'd all be Genesee or Livingston now that I'm thinking about it. So I couldn't remember if Oakfield was in Monroe County or not for some reason. So, but I would expect probably more than likely Oakfield or Pembroke coming out of this. But Red Creek intrigues me because they're a team that can hang tough with pretty much any opponent we've seen.
Yeah, I'm going to say it. I think whoever wins that Boulevard Richburg and Campbell Savonia game, I think Red Creek beats them. Mm-hmm. I think they move on, and then it's going to end. But I do think Red Creek wins one of their sectional games this year, which is a big step for them because nobody thought that would happen.
No, they were one of the pleasant surprises we've had in the area all year, for sure.
Ganonda kind of intrigues me. They beat ER, and then they've had a couple other good games too later. So they seem to be playing good basketball right now. I wouldn't be surprised if they take down Oakfield, Alabama.
They definitely could.
If they take care of Clyde.
They definitely could pip Oakfield, Alabama. I think at that point things get interesting if things stay chalk against York. York and Pembroke have had pretty good years. So I believe like Pembroke's like 18-1 or something like that, and York's like 17-2 or something like that. So keep an eye on that going forward. So that wraps up the boys' side. Let's head over to the girls' side. Spin the wheel for the first bracket that we will be visiting for them. And it is landing on Class A for the girls. So, a couple teams here. One in our Wayne County Wayne Finger Lakes direct coverage area with Wayne. They play HFL, and Canandaigua at 2, playing Wilson Magnet in the first round. Very good Canandaigua girls team, the Wayne girls. Nice couple past weeks here for them, but they get a tough draw against the always tough HFL team.
Yeah, Canandaigua has been playing well this year. I would expect them to probably win a couple games. Maybe just one. I don't know if they go to the championship game, but yeah, Wayne's been playing better lately, but I still don't think they're going to be able to beat Honeyway Falls Lima.
Ooh, it's tough for Canandaigua. You know, you come in as the 2 seed, right, and you got to play 3 games to win the championship.
I mean, A for girls is pretty stacked. We see the A's get separated for boys, and even in the C class, there's no C3 for girls. There's only C1 and C2 for girls. So you'll see some pretty interesting brackets with that. It'll be tough. I mean, Sutherland's always really good as well. So A will be something to keep an eye on for Canandaigua, I would say. Back to the wheel here. And we have girls AA, so get the A's out of the way with early here, I suppose.
Something I never did in school.
Oh, sheesh. That's brutal on your part. You sniped yourself. Victor is the only team in our area here that we got there. They're 8-9. Go be tough sledding for them. I just don't see it happening. I do think they beat Brighton, but beating Schroeder would probably be a tough ask.
Yeah, not much to see out of this bracket in terms of the local teams.
Yeah. Head to the wheel. I like the implementation of the wheel here. Going in different brackets, jumping around, so just right in order. And we have girls D2. One team there, it's Romulus. They take on CO Friendship a couple nights from now in a 7-10 matchup. Again, another tough draw for the local team here. I just don't see them advancing, unfortunately. In fact, I believe this is probably going to be a fairly chalk-ish bracket as well. I don't see a way that either probably one of the private schools or Andover Whitesville don't take the crown.
Yeah, I would agree.
So, get that out of the way here. Spin the wheel once more. And, oh, how about this? Girls B1. So much like the boys, the girls B1 is stacked with local Wayne Finger Lakes teams. Waterloo, the top seed, Palmac, the 2 seed. And at that point, Mid Lakes is coming in at the 5th, with Newark and Geneva at 7 and 10. When the North Wolcott Sodas combined squad at 8. Selfishly, I really, really want that rubber match between Waterloo and Palmac come Friday night, March 3rd at Rush Henrietta. I really want that rubber match.
Me too, Paul. It'd be really awesome to watch them play for the third time and kind of settle it right. But one thing that does interest me in this bracket is right at the top there, if Mid Lakes is able to be the Aquinas, then I think Mid Lakes, coming off that win against Palmac, and then if they come off the win against Aquinas too, I think they could play Waterloo pretty good. Last year they played them pretty good in that crossover game. Yeah, it was in the crossover game. And I think they could do the same as well. They have a tough task, of course. They have to beat Aquinas first. But I think Mid Lakes has been playing their best ball, so that interests me too. But yeah, a Waterloo-Palmac final would be a lot of fun at Rush Henrietta.
Yeah. I don't think this thing stays outright chalk per se matchup-wise. Personally, I think it just ends up being 1 versus 2 in the final. Kyle, you're smirking over there.
Well, because I kind of agree with Nate. I think Mid Lakes, honestly, I think they take down Aquinas, and I think the Waterloo Mid Lakes game will be more interesting, but obviously Waterloo's going to come out on top. I shouldn't say obviously, but more than likely they're going to come out on top. And yeah, I agree. I think it's going to be Waterloo, Palmyra, Macedon, and it's going to be a great atmosphere, great game, and I still think Waterloo's going to win it again.
All right. Spin the wheeler. 4 more classes, brackets to get to. And we are to C2. This one not as loaded, but as I mentioned, the C's and the girls, we have 16 teams on each side in the C's with C1 and C2. Top seed, the Lions taking on 16 Eugenio Maria. You also see Dundee Bradford at the 4 seed and Red Jacket at the 14. I think this is a case where I do think we see one of our local teams here at least make it to the championship game. I do think that would probably be decided between Lions and Dundee Bradford in that semifinal game. Talk about battle names here. Kendall Parker for Dundee Bradford, Jay LaBelle for Lions. If you want to look at the outright ones, obviously got players behind them, but I think I'd give the edge to the top seed Lions, and that I do expect to see them come Saturday afternoon, the 4th at Rush Henrietta.
I talked about it earlier. You're a 2 seed and don't get a bye, but imagine being a 1 seed and not getting a bye. That's
the problem with the girls in the C's, right? They don't have C3, they have only the 2, and they're 16 in both one.
But let's be honest, it's basically a bye in terms of who they're playing.
Yeah, this is an interesting team. I don't want to go completely into the well here per se, but back in 2020. I remember myself and Nick Felice were going to call a game. I believe it was Bloomfield. Yeah, Bloomfield was supposed to be playing Eugenio Maria, and Maria canceled day of. I don't know what the full deal was there, but they've always been a team of mystery to me because they're black and silver. If you go on their team page, and it's are they Bishop Sycamore potentially? But
and it's probably a good thing actually that we kind of talked about earlier that Lions is playing, so they don't get kind of a longer break.
Right.
And this is kind of a game where I guess
I definitely agree. They play Wednesday in that game, so
you'd kind of call it a scrimmage, I guess.
Yeah, I don't think you can say that necessarily with the true bracket there, but
you got to play every game.
Yeah,
never look ahead.
This won't even be close. I'm telling you guys, it will not even be close.
I believe you. All right, the wheel has been spun, and we are off to girls B2. Another matchup square away, Williamson, Marion, and Penyan. Another 8-9 matchup that sees the Mustangs as the road seed there. The only other team, Minders Academy at 2, your top seed of Dansville. In this as well, they're the only team with a quote-unquote I guess Minders would be the bye technically as well. So a couple pre-quarters going in for B2 here. Oh, man, this is interesting here because I think you're going to have a battle of the Vills here again. I mentioned Dansville and Wellsville on the boys' side. I think you see that on the girls' side as well in that top semifinal. And then Minders, I think Minders has a pretty good path, in all honesty, to championship Friday night.
You know, I was thinking about it earlier in the year, and I was like, I think Miners are going to have a good chance in B2, especially with how they've been playing in the second half of the season. And then I saw the brackets come out, and I was like, this is even lining up better for Minders. So I think the Blue Devils have a good chance in this bracket. I'm interested to see how they do.
Yeah, they definitely have a good chance, but I do want to kind of do more research on Hornell, just to see like who they played throughout the year, how good they really were, because sometimes seeding doesn't always.
They played Waterloo, right?
Yeah, I was going to say, I watched a little bit of that game when Waterloo went down there last week. Lost by 20, but I saw that game was, pretty much at the 10-ish range for a pretty good while. So
it's a pretty legit team.
I mean, Hornell always plays tough, too, and that's the thing down there. I mean, a lot of those teams down that way play tough. I mean, mentioned, Dansville and Wellsville, they're down that way. Just a lot of good competitive teams down that way. And they all play each other, and I think it's kind of similar in a way that we kind of see the Finger Lakes East in a sense, almost. Maybe not quite as overall competitive, but certainly you certainly get your opportunities to improve and work on yourself down there. All right, 2 more brackets to go. Wheel is spinning, C1 and D1. And we end up going to D1 first. So D1, couple 4 teams here. Excuse me. Highest of the seeds is South Seneca at 6, then HAC at 8. Honeoye and Naples round out the seedings there. Again, tough uphill sledding here for the local teams. This is a bracket that Keswick's here in D, formerly of C, and that's where I'm used to usually seeing them from. So I'd imagine, and Keswick's a team that competitive year in, year out. They're one of those teams from down that we mentioned, Southern Tier, and they aren't quite Southern Tier. They're more of that Genesee Valley area that plays tough, knows what they got to do, and handle business. And I'd imagine this is probably their bracket to lose.
Yeah, I would agree. And hey, at least we know South Seneca will win a game. That Naples team is just not a good place right now, but I don't know about HAC. I would assume maybe they win. Mount Morris, I'm not sure how they are. The seeding's close.
I do think South Seneca. I think South Seneca could make it to semifinals against. They have to play Lindenville. That'd be a road game, but Friday night, you never know what might happen.
Yeah,
it's the beauty of the 1-game sample size.
Yeah, South Seneca could be interesting.
Yeah. And, you talk about a team playing when it matters most. They've had a pretty good couple weeks down the stretch. So C1 is the last one that we have, and we have a few teams over there as well. Gananda, highest of the bunch at 3. Then is Bloomfield at 6, ER at 8, Clyde Savannah at 10, Marcus Whitman at 11, and Red Creek at 15. I find this bracket very interesting. So I misspoke. 15 teams on this side. Canasteo Greenwood, the top seed, gets a bye. But you have ER, Wayne County champions at 8. Right? Gananda, who finished behind them at 3. And then, by the way, we mentioned the boys matchup between Bloomfield and Marcus Whitman. The next night is the girls' edition of that in the Bomber Barn in Bloomfield. So there's a lot of interesting storylines, in my opinion, in this bracket. And I do see a potential here that we might have 2 Wayne County teams playing against each other come Saturday afternoon, March 4th. Admittedly, I don't know a ton about the Canasteo Greenwood team at the top seed, but we know what ER can do. They've been playing really good ball as of late. And in 8, I don't know if I can, if you were to just look on paper, to me, what we know, we can't trust the fact that they're an 8 seed and think that it's just going to be a win, should they advance against Canasteo Greenwood, for example.
Yeah, I would agree that this is an interesting bracket, but just my general thoughts. I know we all have different opinions. I don't see East Rochester in the championship game. But I do see Ganonda possibly making it, but that Oakfield, Alabama team, I think, is really going to give them trouble. I can't remember. Have they played during the season? I don't think they have. I think it was...
And off the top of my head, I don't think so.
Yeah, I don't know. Just my thoughts. I don't see East Rochester in the championship game, but I would like it. I would like Ganonda in East Rochester.
I think the true gauge in this, if you're, say, Ganonda, Clyde Savannah, if you beat Addison, which I think they do have a shot of that, obviously. I know it wasn't a great final couple weeks for Clyde Savannah, but we know what they can do. Bloomfield, Marcus Whitman, whoever comes out of these games, I think a good barometer is going to be what can Red Creek, what will be that tape you get from that game. Obviously Wayne County, the Wayne County teams at that side of the bracket being Clyde Savannah and Ganonda. If you played Red Creek all year, you know what you did against them. How they square up against Oakfield, Alabama. I think that would be a good gauge for them, especially advancing through. What do we have? What can we plan for? How do we plan against it?
Canasteo Greenwood's got to be really intrigued with the bracket, right? They're thinking about their first game between East Rochester and Avon to play, and they're looking at East Rochester as an 8 seed, a team that made the state Final Four last year.
Right.
So you're taking a look at your game, and you're like, oh wow, we got to play a team that made the state's tournament last year.
But that's what I mean
possibly.
by this. It's just like if you were to do just like the looking at paper thing without knowing it, right? I mean, you just would think it's 1 versus 8. You kind of be quiet and move along, but
right.
like
Wayne County champion.
We know that's not the case in the slightest.
Yeah,
it's kind of crazy.
And they've been playing good too. So, I'm interested in East Rochester at the top there. I think Ganonda should be able to take that bottom part. They've been playing good too as well. So we'll see what happens though. Definitely, to my mind, one of the more intriguing brackets. And girls is C1 though.
I just looked it up. Canasteo Greenwood, I think I'm saying that right.
Canasteo, yeah.
They went 20-0, and I mean, just looking at their schedule, they just play teams I'm not familiar with. So, but yeah, 20-0 is I guess no joke.
No.
But still, you guys have a good point. I mean, East Rochester could very well beat them. They might just kind of think that they're an 8 seed, no big deal, and probably not play as well.
Right. I don't think you can sleepwalk it. It's my opinion. So. That is the bracket preview. How about that, boys? We made it through.
That was fun.
So, you may be wondering, Paul, Nate, Kyle, where are you guys going to be for broadcasting this week? It's a fair question, and I support it. So at this time, we are planning, myself and Nate will be over in Bloomfield tomorrow night for Marcus Whitman, the 9 seed against the 8 seed Bombers. 7 p.m. Boys C1 pre-quarterfinals. That'd be on FL1 radio. We're planning on being there, just waiting for all the official stuff to come back through. And at that point, not too sure. All depends on who wins what, where, who goes where, and stuff like that. So, but be sure to keep a lookout for that on fingerlakes1.com.
We're going to be at the Bomber Barn for the first time all year, right?
Yeah, I mean, I love going there.
We haven't gotten a chance to go there yet, so I'm really excited.
Wait, you've never been there?
No, not this year.
Oh, okay.
Is what I meant. Last year we went there. I think me and you went there a couple times.
Yeah.
I love that gym.
That's a fun venue.
One of the only gyms, I could be wrong by saying this, but one of the only gyms I've experienced where you have seating behind the basket, which is really cool.
Them, Red Jacket. Is that it?
And the student section's awesome there,
I might be missing a gym or two along the way.
Always having fun with the other team, and they're shooting free throws and stuff like that. So really fun atmosphere. Almost like a college style arena with the fans behind it.
And one of the few gyms remaining in Section 5 that I can say I took BP in.
And it's got a great name.
So, yeah, looking forward to that. I mean, obviously this time of year, it's always fun, right, to call games because it's, I mean, look, the storylines kind of write themselves. You don't have to worry about, when the game will pop up. I mean, you know what everybody's playing for this time of year.
And boys and girls, 2 days in a row. That's pretty cool. It's the same location.
I mean, that's an even better one, at least for that. So, really looking forward to that potentially. We plan on being there for that and going full force here through sectional time. Looking forward to it.
Yeah, let the games begin.
Yeah. Kyle, you do a great job with the stats and everything like that and the scores, so I want to remind people once again, make sure every night that there's games. There's nothing tonight, but starting tomorrow again, make sure you check back, see Kyle's nightly wrap-ups, score stats, what's popping from social media.
Maybe some videos sprinkled in, hopefully.
Yeah, FL1 Sports on TikTok.
I was going to say, speaking of that, FL1 Sports TikTok is where you can find some highlights and stuff like that. Kyle excellent job by you, as always, past week, ripping those highlights and getting them up.
Appreciate it. And hopefully the same can be said with the spring sports.
Yeah.
So, yeah, drop a follow and come see some highlights.
Love it.
For sure. All right, so for Nate Sharman, Kyle Evans, I'm Paul Russo. Appreciate everybody for tuning in. I'm sure you check back throughout the week for scores and updates in the brackets. Those will be updated right away as we get information. And until then, I hope everybody has a fantastic week. And to all the teams in the Wayne Finger Lakes, good luck. And hopefully we'll see everybody fighting for a brick.